Hey guys, it's Notifications and welcome to my review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yes, I made a DVD. I don't have anything really in it. I just made a case because I wanted something to show instead of just having complete nothing, an empty hand to show you guys. And what I'm going to say, a lot of people don't agree with. I'm going to say critics probably think I'm nuts for feeling the way I do about this movie, but I don't care. This is how I feel about this movie, and I'm going to be completely honest, as I always have been with any reviews I do on here. I'm always honest about it, no matter how controversial my opinion might be. And I'm going to say it. I saw this in the theater, wasn't expecting much, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. Was it as good as Captain America 2? No. More on that movie later, because I really think that is the best Marvel movie yet, in my opinion. It hit every note right. It was an absolutely spectacular movie. And this movie isn't technically wise, and editing wise, and pacing wise, and everything. It's not even close to being as good as Captain America 2. That's how good Winter Soldier is, and like I said, more on that later. This isn't a review of Winter Soldier. It's a review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But this was still a very entertaining movie in my opinion. And also, this is my opinion, but I think this is the best Spider-Man yet. This is the best Spider-Man movie yet. Yes, I think it's better than all of Raimi's movies. I don't want to start a war with Raimi fans or Webb fans. I don't. It's so stupid. It's just as dumb as the Nolan versus Burton crap. There's no need for it, okay? Why can't we just get along? Just agree to disagree, okay? That's it. And it's not that I hate Raimi's films. I haven't seen them in a long time, but Spider-Man 3 was abysmal. And that really hurt my love for the character. And then it made me realize that, well, that Spider-Man is not the Spider-Man that I grew up with. The wisecracking, funny, charismatic Spider-Man. That's the Spider-Man I grew up with from reading the comics and watching the 90s cartoon. And I didn't get that with Raimi's films. So then it sort of became sort of a... I liked Raimi's films at the time, but then when I revisit them later, then I feel torn and I feel upset because then I've realized now that these movies weren't... They weren't the Spider-Man that I grew up with. And so I kept wanting to see that Spider-Man. And The Amazing Spider-Man had some moments, but this one nailed it. I really think the reason why I find this to be the best Spider-Man movie is because it nailed the character so much. I even told myself going into this movie that I would let slide technique issues, plot issues, whatever, problems with the villains, problems with this, problems with the screenplay. I let all that slide if I just finally got the right Spider-Man on the big screen. I was able to actually to see the Spider-Man that I grew up with finally for the first time on the big screen. And I did. And I totally felt that. I was grinning from ear to ear. I was laughing. I was having such a great time with the opening sequence with Spider-Man versus Alexi. I thought that was an awesome sequence. I don't care what anybody says. That was one of the best sequences in terms of capturing what Spider-Man is. Whistling the Spider-Man theme. Pants is the guy, and he's all like, "Hey, give me that. That's not yours." It's like whistling the Spider-Man theme while he's doing it. From the '60s Spider-Man theme. It was like and then then the gun falls on top of Lexi's head, and Spider-Man does a little nod to the audience. It was perfect. The whole thing where he shows up, meets Alexi at first, and he knocks on the window. Hey, knock, knock. Hey, I'm the Amazing Spider-Man. Some call me Webhead. Oh, well, what's your name? Alexi. Or whatever. Like, oh, okay, all right. But just don't call me late for dinner. It's like, what do you do? It's like, I'm a killer. I didn't mind that, and I know some people hated Paul Giamatti's performance. It's so over the top. I'm like, it's so cheesy Russian accent. I'm like, That's Rhino. Rhino isn't even that developed of a character anyway in the comics. And people were bitching about there's not really a lot of development for Rhino. What is there for Rhino? He's a Russian guy. He's just a guy who gets injected with some shit and wears a Rhino costume. And in this one, he wears an exoskeleton. There is nothing to the character of Rhino. He's not like he's the Juggernaut who actually has a character arc because he's a brother of one of the X-Men. There's none of that. There's none of that going on here. Or he's a brother or cousin or whatever. I don't really necessarily remember for sure. Because continuity of the X-Men, you know, gets confusing easily. Not just the film version, but the comic version. But Rhino has never been that well developed a character, so I could care less if he didn't get extra moments where you develop this character. I'm sorry. Do we need character development up the ass for every single villain in every movie nowadays? You can't just accept the fact that, oh, he's just a bank robbing asshole son of a bitch who gets used by Oscorp and turned into the Rhino. That's it. That's all I need to know, and that's all I got. And I do feel that the way it was handled when you first see the Rhino at the end, and it kind of cuts to black, that's an issue. But like I said, this movie has tons of issues that I notice, that a lot of critics notice, and they slam it for that, and I don't blame them. I'll say it, if you don't like this one, I don't blame you for not liking it, because I can understand the reasons for not liking it. But I kind of relate this is kind of like the Howard the Duck of Spider-Man movies. Howard the Duck has issues, but I still love that movie to death. This is the same sort of thing for me. This movie has issues, but I still really enjoyed it. So I was able to put those issues aside and enjoy the movie for a great Spider-Man movie. Because maybe I didn't get as many action sequences with Spider-Man, but with Peter Parker, they nailed the character. They nailed the relationship between him and Aunt May. They absolutely, Marc, Webb and company have done a fantastic job with the relationship between Peter and Gwen, with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, who in my opinion have the best on-screen chemistry for a couple in a superhero film since Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder in Superman the movie. They just have sparks with each other. And, when what happened in the end, spoiler, of course, all my reviews are full of spoilers. When Gwen dies, I cried. I really did. I'm going to be honest, and I knew it was coming. And then when I checked this out again recently, because I wanted to watch it twice. Yes, I'd watched it once legally in the theater in 3D and IMAX, and then I watched it on torrent. Actually, really good quality torrent cam. And I still enjoyed the movie. I still had a good time. I still enjoyed it as much as I did when I saw it in the theater. And I saw the problems, but I didn't care because I realized it's got issues. But for me, I don't know what it was. I've been waiting for so goddamn long to see the Spider-Man that I grew up with on the big screen, that to see a few little issues here and there with the screenplay and with maybe some of the music choices and maybe some bad acting here and there wasn't enough for me to hate the movie. And yes, it is muddled. Yes, it does feel like there's way too much shit going on at certain points. But when it does get it right, when it does get Spider-Man right, it gets Spider-Man right. And for people that have criticized this movie saying that it doesn't get it right because Spider-Man's acted like a douchebag, I don't get that. I don't understand that. I don't want to see the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man who can't tell a joke to save his life. Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire was a Spider-Man from the past generation, and I can respect him for what he did, but I'm never going to see Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man ever again. I'm going to see Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man because he loves this character. You can tell it in his the way he acts, the way that his performance is. He's so charismatic compared to Tobey Maguire. It's like night and day. And it's just, like I said, there are problems. And I'll get into those soon enough. But what it does right, it does right. It handles the death of Gwen Stacy really well. There were some other alternate cuts where they had the Goblin come in and break her neck or cut the web instead of the whole thing with the clock tower. There's a lot of great nods in that scene to fans of the comic when the clock tower strikes to the time. the time is 121, and that's the issue where Gwen Stacy died. We have the nice little homage to the comic panel with the web that looks like a hand reaching out for Gwen. She's wearing the same outfit that she wore in the comic, and it is a different take on it. It's not dropping her off, Goblin dropping her off the bridge, because they did that in the Raimi film. And I think the problem with this new franchise is that it's trying to be so different. It's trying to do so much things differently than the Raimi franchise, because it's afraid that if it tries to do anything similar, it's going to get railed for that. And it would. It would have. It would have gotten railed for that. It would have gotten railed if it tried to have the same sort of with great power comes great responsibility line for Uncle Ben in the Amazing Spider-Man reboot. And if they had Norman Osborn as Green Goblin of Glen, they would have gotten railed for that. And if they would have had the whole thing dropping him out the bridge, probably Gwen off the bridge, they probably would have railed for that. No, that's deja vu. We saw that done before the Raimi films. It's almost like with this new franchise, it's damned if it does and damned if it doesn't. Because you're going to have people who are huge fans of the Raimi films who will not even remotely even look at this film as potentially a good film, or the reboot, or even care about this franchise or give it a shot. Then you have people who end up liking this one and then go back and completely bash on Raimi's films, which is their personal opinion. But then you have people like me who's kind of in the middle. It's like, can't we like different pieces of these movies? Like, is this the most perfect Spider-Man? Is this the best Spider-Man movie that you could possibly ever get? No, not even close. It's kind of like how I feel about the 1990 Captain America movie for years. For years, that's only somewhat close to the character, Captain America movie I had until the first Avenger and then the Winter Soldier. So here, with this one, it's kind of like the 90s Captain America movie. It has issues, and maybe down the road, if there's a Spider-Man movie that nails the character as well as this does, and has him in the most perfect costume, this is the best suit of the entire, of any of the films. The best looking suit of any of the films. The eyes are finally perfect. It took them how long to get that right? Way too long. And it's fine, but yeah, it has its problems. It is a corny movie. I'm not going to say it isn't, but a lot of the comics that I read were corny as hell. So were the cartoon. Rewatch the 90s cartoon. That was still a pretty corny cartoon, but it was still a fun time. And that's really what I ultimately got out of Amazing Spider-Man 2. As it was a very entertaining, fun flick for me. I liked the moments with the drama. I liked the relationship, the moments where you had Peter and Gwen. And now people was on and off again relationship like they did before. And I'm like, it worked for me though. Because before in Raimi's films, I didn't give a shit about Peter and Mary Jane because there was no chemistry between the two. Here, there's genuine chemistry. And I actually care about these two characters. So I actually care about what is going on with their relationship. That's the difference for me. That's why I was fine with watching scenes with Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield trying to work things out. And also the stuff with Peter's parents, I liked seeing that. I liked seeing that aspect of Peter's life. With his parents and all of that, and finding out the truth of what really happened to his parents. And I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with Uncle Ben not being in this movie. It's like, I don't find it that disrespectful. I know a friend of mine does, and I think he was in a flashback, but they cut it out. And I don't find it that disrespectful because I'm like, it's not like Peter himself is going to forget Uncle Ben. He's not. He's not going to. But this chapter in his life is following him trying to figure out what happened to his parents. And you can't blame the writers, and you can't blame Peter himself for trying to figure that out. Think about it. He was dropped at Aunt May and Uncle Ben's doorstep when he was just a kid. No explanation of what happened to his parents. Finally gets the revelation. Finally gets his Aunt May to tell him the truth after all these years. And she says that, oh, your parents are traitors. He doesn't buy that. He gets frustrated. And then ultimately ends up finding the truth of what his parents sacrificed themselves for him. And that his father really did love him more than anything in the world. And then he finds that train station. And then he finds out the revelation. The only reason why the spider didn't kill him, the radioactive spider didn't kill him in the first movie, or why, he didn't turn into a giant man spider, is because he put in his DNA into the genetic code of the genome that Richard Parker was working on, And that way, you know, without Parker's bloodline, that Oscorp would never be able to use it for you know, evil. And I know some people are like, looks like Egg Lee's a Hulk. And I'm like, there's so many things that are like another thing. And I'm trying to back away from that. Because there's been there's been thousands, possibly millions of movies that have been made, folks. Maybe even billions. It is completely... There's been way too many movies that have been made in the over, you know, since the movies, you know, the invention of feature films, to really continue to use that argument of a ripoff or this borrows this from this. This is too much like this. This is too much like that. It's just there's been so many different things. And I know it's so easy to do that. But what I'm going to try to do from now on is I'm going to try to go back away. I'm going to try to back away from that. Because I don't know if that's actually really, honestly, unless it's blatantly obvious, like some other, you know, some movies that are, you know, remakes or reboots or whatever that literally just copy and paste certain scenes. Like, for example, like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake with the death of Tina and that kind of stuff. Okay, but with this, you know, I'm not going to do that. Just because it might have the whole thing with the genetic thing. And I think that was in the comic too. So, you know, I admire the writers. And I really think the franchise could use some new writers, some new life into it, who can know how to pace a film better. Because at the end of the day, yes, I agree with people who think the pacing of this is off. It is overlong. It is bloated. It is a bloated movie. But, you know, I still enjoyed it. It's like eating a whole pizza and then afterwards you feel bloated as fuck. You know, you're all like stuffed. You're like, oh, that wasn't very good for me, but I liked it. See, that's the whole sort of... I guess that's how I feel about this movie. It's like junk food. But anyway, so, you know, do you actually look at all this junk food? Do you actually eat this stuff? But anyway, Amazing Spider-Man 2, going back to the whole stuff with his father and his parents, I didn't mind that angle. I liked it. I thought it added a little bit of extra intrigue to the plot, and I didn't mind that plot whatsoever, because I actually kind of liked them expanding upon that in the reboot. So if you didn't like that plot, and they followed up on it some more in this one, then you're not going to like that plot. You didn't like that plot before, you're not going to like the plot that follows his father and his parents in this one either. So, it's one of those things. And when it comes to the villains, a little bit crowded, yes, but Rhino didn't have enough screen time or enough, and some people were pissed at that. I'm like, the Rhino is a very throwaway character. He's about as throwaway of a character in the Spider-Man comics as Hammerhead. The dude with like a hair, like he has a big head and he has like a metal plate in it. He uses it to try to ram into Spidey. Or Shocker. Like, Shocker is not a character that could carry a film. Rhino is not a character that could carry a film. Rhino doesn't need that much character development. Rhino was fine. I was fine with him just being the Lexi guy in the beginning in a fun action sequence, showed Spidey being Spidey, and, you know, saving people, saving the butts of people, using his wits to get ahead of people. The whole thing where he's juggling all the different radioactive, bottles of plutonium, and he's like, "I got you." Oh no! Dang it! You got don't do that. You know, it bounces away from him, and he has to go chase after it again. Ends up getting, he thinks he's got it, and a car ends up hitting him, and then his phone rings. And he's talking to Gwen. It's like, yeah, I'll be there I'm running a little bit late. It's like, are those sirens and gunshots I hear in the background? No, it's nothing, really. It's totally, it's like a panel of the Spider-Man comic come to life. And I've been waiting to see that for years. And the score, I love the score. I love the score by not James Horner. It's not James Horner. His score sucked. I love the score by Hans Zimmer. And the Magnificent Six, I think, of Pharrell helped do some of the music. And I really liked that one because I felt that it really did capture Spider-Man as a hero. He's a hero. That's what he is. He's a hero. Let's see if maybe I can find it. The theme here. I like this theme. I don't care if it sounds cliche. I really like this theme. Coming up right here. And when I heard this theme first heard this theme, I was just so ecstatic and happy to hear that theme, this theme that really felt like it belonged to Spider-Man. And it wasn't too generic for my taste, because it might sound generic, like, oh, it's like stuff you hear in you hear this stuff like in a Super Bowl or whatever, or this or that, Star Trek Voyager. But I love this. I mean, I like this theme. It sure sounds like a lot of themes. It sounds like the 70s Captain America TV show theme. It sounds like a little bit of the Hercules theme. Pino DiNaggio. Sounds like, you know, a little bit like Back to the Future, Superman. Take your pick. But this is what fits for a hero. You know, not Hans Zimmer's thumping, bum, 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 da, da, like stuff like from Batman. This totally fits this character. So, you know, just wanted to show, you know, a little bit of that, because I think it totally does fit the character. And I thought it fit the character like a glove, and it was so nice to hear that type of music again in the big screen. Yeah, it was a throwback to stuff that you hear like John Williams' score from the Superman the movie, but it was a welcome throwback. And so going back to this, yeah, so I like the score, except for the stuff they did with Max Dillon. Every time he showed up, he had this corny-ass, goofy theme, which I didn't care for. But the other bits of music I didn't mind. I liked the whole, the electro score, you know, with the techno beat, you know, the dun, 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 or something like that. I liked that. That was pretty cool. And and there's some songs like I didn't care for the fucking schmaltzy ass Hallmark card song while Peter's working on trying to discover what's going on with his dad, his parents, and you got for you, da 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 da, for you, that was just. I'm not moving on. I'm better when you're gone for you. It's just like the reason why I'm just tired of that goddamn song. I hear it all the goddamn time, and I've heard it in commercials, and it was lame. It just felt like a Hallmark card, like a Hallmark commercial for a Hallmark card or whatever. Somebody or a commercial for K Jewelers, you know, and this guy did something for his girlfriend. You know, he bought some diamonds for you. K Jewelers, you know, new diamond collection at K Jewelers or some shit. I mean, it was terrible. So there were parts of the movie that genuinely did suck. Okay, I have to be completely honest. It had some of the same problems that The Amazing Spider-Man did, pacing wise, fractured in the way that it was trying to tell the story. But at the end of the day, I found it to be a highly enjoyable sequel, and I was able to look past those flaws, like Dr. Kafka. What a shitty character. This German, Australian, whatever the fuck character who was so out of place in this movie. His acting belonged in a Roger Corman B movie. It was like, what the hell is this guy doing in this movie? Get him the fuck out of this movie. And it wasn't funny. It was just stupid. And then it reminded me of the kind of stuff you saw in Raimi's film, the stupid cameos. Like Bruce Campbell as the waiter. He wasn't funny in that scene, and he wasn't needed. Get him out of the movie. I felt the same way. It kind of ruined the experience with that. Kafka was such a sore thumb, and he just did not belong in this movie. And Dane Deehan's performance as Harry and as Green Goblin. I like Dane Deehan for the little bit I saw of him in Chronicle, but he didn't bring his A game here. There were multiple times it just sounded like he was just trying to imitate Jack Nicholson. He was just trying to be Jack Nicholson Jr. But it just didn't work. And then him as the Goblin, the makeup sucked. He looked like Evilhead from Fright Night, the original, not the fucking shitty ass remake with Colin fuck all. And it's just, you know, at the end of the day, like the more and more I think about it, the more and more you would think I would hate this movie, but I don't, because like I'm saying, the things that it gets right, I thought it got a lot more things right than it got things wrong, in my opinion. You know, so it got Spider-Man right. Every scene I saw Spider-Man in, as brief as they might be, were so great to see, were so wonderful to see, so much so that it regenerated my love for the character. And no other Spider-Man film since maybe the first Spider-Man, when I saw it when I was a kid. When I was, I wasn't necessarily a kid. Well, I was born in '89, so I wasn't necessarily a kid, but I was still, I was tween, I think, at that point in time, and that I was really big into Spider-Man. And after Spider-Man 3, I kind of felt betrayed by the character, and then The Amazing Spider-Man didn't really do a lot to establish me to love the character again, like the first Avenger did, which made me just fall in love with Captain America all over again. And the Winter Soldier just put Cap back to #1 for me. And Amazing Spider-Man did its best to try to do that, but like I said, as a whole film, it is not the best Spider-Man film that we could possibly have. But as a Spider-Man movie, it has the best Spider-Man. And that's why I'm able to look past some of these problems. Because I enjoy it for what it is, as a good Spider-Man movie. For once I have the Spider-Man I've been waiting to see, so on the big screen. So all these other problems, and maybe nitpicks, like, oh, how come Richard Parker has a Sony Vaio laptop and this fucking room or whatever, the secret room and the station is supposed to be from the past. And I'm like, who gives a fuck? That's the kind of nitpicking that I do not want to end up doing with any movie, no matter how shitty it is. Because that's fucking stupid and pointless. And it's, yes, the kind of nitpicking I make is that it's kind of blatant advertising by Sony, but it's not as bad as Man of Steel with IHOP and Sears and 7-Eleven, and that was awful. That was 10 times worse than any of the product placement in this movie. And also, it took place in Times Square and in New York. So you're going to have product placement. No matter what you try to shoot in New York, you're going to have product placement, especially the scene in Times Square. So, but anyway, and I know that's the scene, a good amount of people weren't pleased with, but I liked it. I liked the scene. I thought it showed Spider-Man thinking on his feet, trying to talk Electro out of, losing it and doing the wrong thing. The trailer edited it wrong and made it look like he forgot what his name was, and then he shot at him with his electric bolts, and that's why he got pissed, and that's not the reasoning. Electro got pissed off because he's in a fragile state of mind already. Max Dillon was already a mentally challenged human. He was already a man who had mental health issues. He was talking to himself. You already knew there was something wrong with this guy. And now he has this tragic accident. He's about to get incinerated. He wakes up, and he's now combined with these electric eels, and he's a mutant of sorts, and he's powered by electricity. And he's seeing all these different things. His vision is completely changed now. All he's seeing everything, and basically as nothing but energy or sources of energy. He's discombobulated. He's disorientated. He's scared. And very easily susceptible to a breakdown. He was already susceptible to a mental breakdown beforehand. And now he has this, life-changing transformation that occurs to himself. And now you have all these people talking to him. Cops are threatening to shoot him. He's like, no, I don't want to do it. Just don't do anything. And Spider-Man comes in and, it's like, forgot his name at first. And he gets mad, but he's like, no, Max, you're my eyes and ears. Because he showed up earlier in the scene with Rhino and he saved Max. And then Max is like, well, no one wants me. No one likes Max. No one wants me. And then Spidey's about to talk it out and defuse the situation, and some dumbass cop with an itchy trigger finger shoots Electro, and that starts it. And so then Electro, in this already fragile state of mind, thinks that Spidey set him up, and now he wants to kill Spidey. And I know some people are like, that's stupid. I'm like, does everything have to have an extremely paint-by-numbers explanation for a motivation for somebody to do a bad thing? I'm sorry. In real life, fucking people do bad things out of just equally stupid reasonings. Because they're crazy. Max Dillon is nuts. He's not right in the head. Especially at this moment in time. He's now got all the more power in the world that he's never had. And he's already in a fragile state of mind. Some asshole shoots him. Now he's just thinking about protection, and now his mind's just firing on all different kind of neurons and everything, and it's already out of whack. And so the conclusion he comes to is that Spider-Man had set him up, and now he's pissed, and he wants to kill Spider-Man. It's as simple as that. It's not as if there's no need for any more explanation or any more in-depth detail, whatever reasoning for Electro to go after Spider-Man. because it's the same sort of stuff in the comics that happens. Electro in the comics was some electrician guy. He was messed up. He got, I forgot, it was like radiation or something, turned him into Electro, and he started robbing banks. Okay? So it's not like really that complex of a character to begin with. And for people complaining about the look, I used to be one of them, but I'm not going to do it because I'm looking at the Electro in the comics and the cartoon, and that shit is fucking gay as hell. To be honest, it is. It is so fucking shitty looking, that costume. With the green and yellow jumpsuit, with the green mask, with the freaking lightning bolts going out of the top of his head. That would not work in a live action film. It would have looked terrible. So having him in just a hoodie at first, and then he creates his own costume, which I didn't mind, which had its whole sort of nod to the old costume with the lightning bolt on his shoulder. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the look of Electro at the end of the day. Green Goblin, who they never call him Green Goblin, I did. Just give him a damn mask, and it's fine. Just give him a mask. Give him a helmet. Okay? That's fine. Having him look like Evil Ed, not good. Or Beavis. It's stupid. But, and like I said, Dane Deehan's performance was just, look at me. I'm Jack Nicholson, but not really. You know, it was just really, yeah. So I agree with people. A lot of the problems people have with this movie, I see them. But for some reason, they don't matter. They don't matter to me in the overall enjoyment of this film. So, anyway, going back to the sort of villains and how they're portrayed and whatever. Like I said, Electro doesn't need any more of a motivation. Okay? It's stupid. There's no bit to it. Who cares? I mean, he's a bad guy. That's it. Sets up some really cool action sequences. I don't care how they set it up. It doesn't have to be the most realistic thing. And plus, it isn't realistic. This is as unrealistic of a superhero film as possible. And that's why I liked it too. Because it's like, we're not going to take the Nolan Goyer route. We're going to be over the top. And we're going to be what a lot of Spider-Man movies are. And the problem with Spider-Man movies that a lot of people are always going to run into, for people that aren't as big fans of the comics, is that the characters and the villains are so over the top and ridiculous. Mysterio is a fishbowl on his head. Vulture's an old guy with wings. You know, Green Goblin is the one character, but even in the comics, he's like a green elf wearing a onesie. You know, these characters are nothing compared to the deeply, you know, well-written, well-thought-out characters, you know, in Batman's Rogues Gallery. You can't compare them. It's kind of like the Flash's Rogues Gallery. He has a bunch of equally silly, goofy villains, like a talking gorilla and an anti-Flash, Professor Zoom, the Mirror Master. I think it's the guy's the Mirror Master. You know, Captain Cold is pretty much just Mr. Freeze all over again. I mean, he has just about as goofy sort of villains as Spidey does. The only ones that really, honestly, can really have a lot of good, you know, dearth of weight to them are Green Goblin, Venom, and Carnage. Because all the other characters, Chameleon's a dude who changes faces and identities. You know, Hobgoblin's just Green Goblin, but with an orange, you know, color scheme. And one comic actually became an actual Hobgoblin, so it's kind of interesting. But, I mean, Spider-Man's always had goofy villains. He fought a guy who was named Typeface, who used fucking letters as weapons. Okay? He fought a guy named Spot, who, like, had spots all over his body, and, like, he, like, teleported or some shit. And he also fought, you know, characters like some dude who was on stilts. I think that was Daredevil, actually. But he might have, I mean, Spider-Man's fought all kinds of stupid characters. Like I think it was this black guy on a rocket-powered skateboard. I mean, that's a rocket racer. Okay, Spider-Man has faced, you know, and fought tons of the kangaroo. There was like a dude that literally all he did was like he had like special enhanced legs, so I guess he could jump as high as a kangaroo. That was it. That was it. Like, so I'm saying, he's always had lame villains. And the Green Goblin and Venom and Carnage are the ones that, you know, kind of are, you know, above that. But Spider-Man doesn't have the deep, you know, rogues gallery that Batman does, that has all of these really potentially well-developed, well-thought-out characters. So that's the problem you have with Spider-Man, and you're always going to run into that. So what I do in a Spider-Man movie, I look at it and I'm like, okay, fine. I understand how these characters are. And Doc Ock's another one that has good character development. But if it's not Doc Ock, if it's not, Goblin, if it's not Carnage or Venom, you got nothing. And even Carnage is just a serial killer. There's not a lot of development with him. Venom is the one that really needs to be done right and has potential to be the best nemesis for Spider-Man, because essentially he's the anti-Spider-Man. But, they just haven't done that right yet. But, like I'm saying, here's a Shocker, the dude shoots sonic blasts, Rhino. He's always had villains like that just... Scorpion. Scorpion's kind of cool, but it doesn't have that much of a character development with the guy. And when they try to add character development like the Sandman, they just fuck it up and add shit that wasn't even there. So you're always going to run into that same issue unless it's the big three, so to speak. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Venom. Or maybe Carnage as an alternate. Because all the other ones are just kind of, what, he faces the old guy, Jackal? We're going to put Jackal on there? I've heard about Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter, he's just a guy, he's got some enhanced abilities. And he goes in and hunts animals, and he's basically a hitman for hire and gets hired to hunt Spider-Man. It's not a very interesting character. And that's the problem you run into with Spider-Man films, is that his villains aren't that interesting. When you get deep into them, they're not that interesting. If you're trying to look for character development. But if you're looking at them as just fun, colorful villains, you got plenty of those. So that's what I look at for a Spider-Man movie. I'm not looking for super in-depth character development. A little bit goes a long way. Like with Harry, I felt for that guy. I really did. I liked the approach they took, where they killed off Norman Osborn. I was like, wow, that takes balls. And I actually applaud you for that, because we're not getting the same tired old hat again with Norman Osborn as Green Goblin and hand it off to Harry. We're going to go to Harry right from the bat. I just think that could have been handled a little bit better. Peter showing up at Harry's mansion, hey, I missed you. You have no context. There's nothing to latch onto with that. I really think you should have had a flashback. Could have been a quick 2-minute flashback with Peter, Harry as kids. That could have solved that problem really easily. But I did feel for the guy. He's cursed with this debilitating, awful disease. And yes, he's not dying right away. I understand people was like, well, he's not going to die like in a matter of weeks. He'll just slowly die like his father did. But think about this from the perspective of a 20-year-old kid. 20-year-old, not really a kid, but he's a 20-year-old adult. He's young, okay? He just got out of high school, pretty much. And now he realizes he's going to be cursed with this debilitating, disfiguring disease for the rest of his life. In his mind, he is going to be dead. Think about it from the perspective of teenage girls. Like, oh, I'm 20, I'm 23, I'm old. It's the same sort of shit. But this time with Harry. He doesn't want to have that happen to him. So he goes into desperate measures. He tries to ask Spider-Man for help. Spider-Man tells him, no, it's too dangerous. I don't know what my blood would do to you. And he gets pissed. And he goes to desperate measures, and he ends up disfiguring himself in the process. I felt for him because I felt for his plight, and I kind of felt bad because it's like maybe Peter could do a little bit more, but then what else could he do? He's a limited amount of time here. Electro's gunning, something's going on, and I understand Electro didn't really go after Spider-Man until Harry let him out, but I do agree that at points it does feel like it's a setup for the Sinister Six and nothing more than that, and that definitely wasn't necessarily the best approach. But like I said, I don't mind the little bit of character development we have with Harry. The performances was uneven by Dane Deehan, but the screenwriting with that character, I didn't mind. I just think it needed a better payoff with the Goblin. And I think putting back in the deleted scene where after Gwen is dead and Goblin comes in and antagonizes Spider-Man some more, and Spider-Man beats the fucking shit out of the Goblin, almost beats him to death. That should have been left in the movie. Because that's how it was in the comic. Goblin, ha ha ha, and Spider-Man's like, I'm going to kill you. That's the one point in time in Spider-Man's life where he went from, you know, okay, I'll arrest you, get you to jail. No, this point, it's like, I'm not arresting you anymore. You know, kind of like RoboCop. You know, I'm not arresting you anymore. You know, I'm gonna kill your ass, kill my girlfriend, you piece of shit. So, I really think that should have been put back in the movie. That would have added a little more impact to that whole scene, and it had a lot of impact. I mean, like I said, I cried, but it would have added a little bit even more impact to that scene if you had that moment where he beats the shit out of Goblin. And going, you know, I'm going all over the place, but I'm just trying, you know, trying to explain why I like this movie. So, and also explain that I do know about the flaws. I do know about the issues. I see them just as well as everyone everyone else who saw this movie saw those problems did. So, and but another thing, you know, I think it is. I'm trying to think of like what else I'm trying to not take forever to do this, but I'm also trying to think of not trying to leave stuff out. So yeah, Dane Deehan, like I said, uneven performance, and like keep that scene where Spider-Man beats the shit out of him. I think that would have helped add even more impact to that sequence. Would have pleased a little bit more people. Would have added more to that scene, so then people might not feel it's so abrupt and so short and whatever. But even then, I think even as bad as some of Dane Deehan's makeup and everything, that was better than surfing, snowboarding, freaking Harry Osborn's Goblin in Spider-Man 3. Whose whole only motivation, he was like to kill Spider-Man because he thought he killed his dad, which is understandable. But then you have this bullshit plot line where the butler knew it all along. Yeah, more on that piece of shit down the road. Spider-Man 3. This is not worse than Spider-Man 3. I don't see how any fan of Spider-Man could think that, and it's fine if you do, but I just don't understand how anyone could look at this movie, and as flawed as it is, and say, yep, this is the worst Spider-Man movie ever. A lot of the critics say that. Worst. This is the worst reviewed Spider-Man movie. I'm like, this is not worse than Spider-Man 3. The toe-tapping scene where Peter taps his toes in Oscorp is nowhere near as bad as the dancing scenes in Spider-Man 3. Nothing in this movie is as bad as the dancing scenes in Spider-Man 3 or the emo Peter Parker moments. Nothing is as bad. Not even Dr. Kafka. So, but going back to the whole sort of villain stuff, Dane Deehan, yeah, it did seem a bit rushed, but I think if they added a couple more scenes that were going to be in the movie that they cut out, that would have helped. Electro, like I went on about it already, I'm fine with his motivation. It's short, it's to the point, it's not complicated, and people have a problem with that, because I think it needs to be more than that. And I didn't think it was one of those, like, he's innocent, you know, and I understand when people are tired of Spider-Man villains who were innocent and then corrupted. That's a lot of those villains are. That's the way that a lot of them are. It's kind of the way Spider-Man villains are, and it's, you know, it's kind of lame, but at the same time, it's staying true to a lot of the comics. A lot of these villains kind of are just misguided people who got put down the wrong path, led by other misguided people. So, I understand why that you get tired of that, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, fuck this movie with the same shit. And I'm like, I think that's the problem with this movie. People were getting tired of Spider-Man already by the last one, and, you know, they just didn't think it needed to be rebooted, and some people were still clinging on to Toby, and other people, you know, like this new one, but then it's just divided, and then you just have people who, well, you know, it's the same shit, different thing, and I can only understand why people are upset, but I'm like in the middle. I'm like, I like things about Raimi's, and I like a lot of things about this one. At the end of the day, I'd probably choose this one over any of the other ones because, like I said, it has the best Spider-Man. He has the best charisma out of all the Spider-Man films. He's the most, you know, true to the character. You know, he's quipping, he's wisecracking. You know, cop in the megaphone's talking loud, and he's like, "Oh man, whoa!" You know, it's totally Spidey. Like everything I'm seeing, I was like, this is Spider-Man. You know, the whole scene where you hear the dubstep version, "Itsy Bitsy Spider," dun 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 dun, because Electro's shooting electric bolts, Spider-Man getting away from him, and he's like, I hate this song. You know, funny jokes, quips, you know, like, hey, Sparkles. You know, later on, he uses that joke later, and he's like, you know, I'm a god. And he's like, a god named Sparkles? You know, it's just totally Spider-Man. And then you have the whole sort of stuff where, you know, like I said, you know, the whole thing with Alexei in the beginning. And then he fights the Rhino at the end. He's with a megaphone, and he's all like, you want me to come down there so you can kill me? Okay. Nice to be home. You know, that's totally Spider-Man. And you know, that's the kind of stuff that I miss. And I love seeing the moments where he uses his intellect again, you know, like he did in the reboot, which you never saw Raimi's Peter ever do. You never got the idea that he was this genius. And I understand, yeah, it was kind of lame that Gwen figured out the magnetic thing before Peter did, but that's happened before in the comics and in the cartoons. So it's not something that I'm going to be that upset about at the end of the day. It's not even that big of a deal. So, you know, I like the scene where he's experimenting with the web, trying to figure out how to make it so, you know, his web shooters won't get crushed by, you know, or electrocuted, short-circuited by Electro. The scene at Times Square I thought was pretty cool. The effects, I thought the effects in this were really well done and the best of all the Spider-Man films. Especially the stuff where Spider-Man is the most acrobatic and agile as I've ever seen him in any movie. The fight scenes are the best I've seen in a Spider-Man film, because it's the most fluid and most agile looking, you know, Spider-Man in these fight scenes. They might be a bit short, but hey, they were short but sweet. At least they weren't a total fuck up, these fight scenes. At least they were well done and well shot and well edited. And the one time he had any kind of bad editing was like in the beginning with the prequel thing, with the plane crash, with Richard and Mary Parker, and the shitty shaky cam, which I don't understand why people still want to do this. There was barely no shaky cam in the first movie, in the reboot. And they had to open up the movie with shaky cam, annoyed me to no end. But the rest of the movie didn't have nearly as much shaky cam. And so, I mean, any of the other sort of plot points here and there, I didn't feel like, I know some people said it felt muddled and bloated and confusing, but I didn't see that. I thought it was just very simple. It was just very to the point. A lot of people are thinking that I don't understand that this is a movie that is over you know, complicated. I thought it was very simple and to the point. You know, Harry needs, you know, Spider-Man's blood because he thinks it'll cure him of his disease. Electro, he's already mentally, challenged and fragile man. He gets in a tragic accident, gets these powers. Spider-Man almost talks him out of it because he thinks, you know, Spider-Man is his friend. And he gets shot. And so in his fragile mind, he thinks Spider-Man is set him up. And that's just enough for him to go off. And then he's got all these electric powers. And they're probably fucking up his brain. He's probably losing every bit of himself and becoming more animalistic. Because, think about it, part of him is also electric eel. Electric eels aren't very, you know, they're a lot more to the point, and probably their attitudes are not very sympathetic. And you saw that in the scene where I thought Jamie Foxx did a good job being intimidating in the whole scene where he's going in, you know, soon. It was like, soon everyone in this city will know how it is to live in my world. A world without power, without mercy, a world without Spider-Man. They will see me for who I truly am. I'm Electro. And it's like, I know it sounds corny when I say it, but that's a lot of the lines in the comics and the cartoons. Spider-Man comics, a lot of them are corny. A lot of Spider-Man cartoons are corny. That's kind of how the way it is, but it's enjoyable and it's fun. It's campy. It's like in some ways kind of like Adam West's TV show, or you know, like I said, Howard the Duck is campy, but it's fun to watch. It's kind of like what Spider-Man is. Spider-Man isn't serious. Spider-Man isn't Batman. And I think people and critics were expecting Spider-Man to be like Nolan and Goyer's Batman, and that's not what he is. And so people look at those movies, in my opinion, way too much nowadays, some people, as a template of what a superhero film should be. And this movie is not like that, and they're pissed at it. And they think it sucks because it doesn't follow that template. And I love it because it doesn't follow that template. Because it's like, hey, we're making a comic book movie, a movie based in a comic book, where there's a guy dressed in red and blue tights, slinging around, you know, town with spider webs, and we got villains that shoot electricity, and a crazy guy flying around in a glider, cackling like a madman, throwing goblin bombs. This is not Citizen Kane, and we're not going to approach it like that. But when it needs to add moments of seriousness, it nails it. The stuff with Gwen Stacy, the death of Gwen Stacy was shot so well, so powerful, so moving. You know, I thought it was really well done. I maybe they could have saved that for the third movie. But at the end of the day, I'm glad they did it because they did such a good job with it. And I've been waiting to see that scene on the big screen. And then when I found out that they did shoot the scene where Spider-Man loses it and almost kills Goblin, but they cut it out, then I'm like, well, I love this movie even more because that should have been in there, and it probably will be on the DVD. I'll be able to see that scene, hopefully, in an extended cut of the movie, and that'll make that scene even more powerful and even more so of what I've been wanting to see with the death of Gwen Stacy. And the way that the first reboot did such a good job actually making me care for the characters of Peter and Gwen and care about the relationship, and then carry it over in the sequel, made her death so much more powerful. And that's why I didn't mind the reboot happening, because they got everything right that they got wrong with Raimi's films. So, in my opinion. But anyway, like I said, yes, it's corny. This new one's corny. This new one has some, kind of lame, lame moments. But Spider-Man has always been prone to those type of things. His whole Clone Saga was some of the worst comics I've ever read. But at the end of the day, I still enjoyed them. They weren't boring comics, but they were pretty poorly written and scripted, and shit was just going everywhere all over the place. But at the end of the day, I still liked the Clone Saga, as flawed as it was. And that's pretty much a lot like this movie. It's flawed, it has its issues, but at the end of the day, I found it very enjoyable and a lot of fun to watch. It was really fun with the best Spider-Man I've ever seen on the big screen, because it's so close to the character that I grew up with. And I was so glad I could see that. And, the new score by Hans Zimmer really helped it even even more. The action sequences, which I thought were spectacular, but, yeah, maybe a little bit brief. And all the other problems didn't bug me, didn't bother me. In fact, I already think this movie's a little bit underrated, because I don't see how this is a 54% in the worst Spider-Man movie. I don't see it. I can't see it. It just doesn't work for me. And yes, I'm an adult. I'm a 25-year-old man, and so I'm not some tween-age kid. So some people might think that, only tweens like this one. Bullshit. I'm a man, and I like this one. And I like it a lot. So, sue me. But anyway, it's just, it has its issues. But I didn't think they were anywhere nearly as bad as the issues that Spider-Man 3 had. And that's a whole nother story. And I just thought the villains that Electro was a weak villain anyway. So his motivation being kind of weak didn't bother me. Like I said in other long-winded sort of rant kind of stuff in this review, that a lot of Spider-Man's villains have weak motivations, so I'm used to it. So, but anyway, yeah, I really don't know what to say about the main Spider-Man 2. I've gone pretty in-depth in it and talked about a lot of stuff, and, I just, over almost an hour, but I just felt passionate about it. I just felt I wanted to come to this film's defense. I wanted to be that guy that comes in and says, it's not as bad as people are saying it is. It's not making Spider-Man... Some people said it's killing Spider-Man. How is this killing Spider-Man? This is giving me, and a lot of other people, there's still people who agree with me too, who think this is the best one so far. And there's a lot of people like me out there that this has just regenerated our love for the Webhead. And it's kind of aggravating to me that people are looking at this new, wisecracking Spidey as the wrong Spider-Man, as the douchey Spider-Man. He's being mean. He's being kind of a dick. But that's how Spider-Man is. He's always been like that. I said it in the other review. Spider-Man's always been kind of like that. Villains want to, kill him. Not because he's so good at beating their ass, because he's so good at shitting on them. So, so he's so good at that. And he's immature. That's who he is. And I know some of my friends want to see Spider-Man and not Spider-Kid or Spider-Teen, but they haven't done Spider-Teen right until now, so I'm fine with seeing that. Now he's going to college, and now we will have those moments. And Spider-Man's always been kind of an immature, even as a man, he's been immature because of the way that he acts and the way that he behaves. But at the end of the day, he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's there for you when you need him. And he's always he bleeds for his city, for the city of New York. And he wears his heart on his sleeve for that city. And this movie did a great job showing that. The moments where he stands up for the kid. You know, the moment where the kid dresses up as Spider-Man near the end and tries to fight with Rhino, and Spidey comes in and says, you know, nice job, Spider-Man, but I'm here to take over now, you know. Go back with your mom, you know, help your mom out. You know, those moments. You didn't see those moments in Raimi's films. The little things. And those went a long way for me. You know, the moment where he goes in, you know, he goes and buys stuff. You see moments where Spidey gets a cold. The moments where you see, you know, the montage of Peter, you know, Spider-Man, you know, he's after he broke up, Gwen Stacy broke up with him, and he's swinging throughout town, and he's doing all these kind of weird stuff, and he's, you know, he's covered all his suits covered in all kind of crap, and he's got to fix it, and the whole drama with him trying to hide this costume from, you know, Aunt May. It's totally like everything that I remember and cherished reading in comics and the cartoons. And it was such a joy to see that. And there's some moments like those in the Raimi films. But I think Raimi's movies feel more like Raimi's vision of Spider-Man than actually the Spider-Man that I was in the comics. Other than the 60s comics, Steve Ditko's comics, pretty close to that. But I have to admit, it's kind of weird to see a 60s sensibility, you know, and with Peter Parker in the modern day. And I'll get into that later, because I'm planning on revisiting the Raimi films next. Starting with Spider-Man 3. Yeah, I'm going backwards. Get the shittiest one out of the way first. But anyway, yeah, there hasn't been a perfect Spider-Man movie yet. There hasn't been one. You know, kind of like how I feel I'm the one, you know, I don't think there has been one. You know, Captain America, there has been. Winter Soldier, it's hard to top that. Well, maybe they will, I don't know. But there hasn't been a perfect one yet. But this is as close as it's going to get right now. Because this Spider-Man is the Spider-Man I grew up with. And that's why I connect with this movie. And that's why I enjoyed it. Because no matter how short of scenes he might have, didn't matter to me, because those scenes were great. And to me, that was enough for me to look past all the other issues and really enjoy this movie as a great Spider-Man film. As a great movie? No, it's not a great movie. It's got issues up the ass, you know, plot-wise, pacing, score, tone, everything. But like I said, just like Howard the Duck, I still enjoy it. And it has problems, but I still enjoy the movie. And yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2, like I said, I think it's the best Spider-Man movie yet because of that. Because it gets Spider-Man right. It has the best Spider-Man in it. And, my opinion, the best action sequences, as short as they might be. So there's a lot of good in this movie. So that's like I said, I think the good in this one outweighs the bad for me. And that's all I can really say. I've gone really in depth, almost an hour. It will be probably an hour. And, you know, hope you enjoyed it regardless. And I don't really say about the film except we rate it out of 5 stars. I'm going to give it 4. Like I said, I'll drop a 1 star for, you know, these few issues here and there. But in my opinion, I look at them as nitpicks. They're not problems with the movie. You know, I thought the speech at the end with Gwen Stacy was great. The whole thing where she talked about hope. It tied in with the movie perfectly. Just like What Is Up With These Series and great speeches at the end. You know, the voicemail speech by Uncle Ben at the end of the first one. And I do agree that it could have just ended there. It could have ended with the funeral scene, too. It could have ended with the funeral scene and the multiple times Peter goes in, you know, for months and months after Gwen's death. It could have ended with that, too. Easily. You know, but I like that speech. But then again, I don't kind of, at the end of the day, I kind of like the way that this one ended. Because it's kind of a cliffhanger. But, you know, I've read comics that have been like that, and it just established the whole hope angle that, you know, Spider-Man's always going to be there for his city. You know, he's back, and he's going to be there for anybody who needs hope. He's going to be there. And, you know, that's great. That's what a hero does. So, yeah, there you go. Flawed, but incredibly entertaining movie for me. I don't think it's nearly as bad as everyone says it is. And if you disagree and think it's a piece of shit, fine. You know, but let's not get into flame wars over it. That's all I'm asking. And it's really stupid. Spider-Man wouldn't even do that. What would Spidey do? Would Spidey be doing that crap? No. So let's not get into Webb versus Raimi. I don't really want to go there. So but as for what it is, highly enjoyable sequel. I will definitely buy it officially on DVD and Blu-ray when it comes out. And say it again, the best Spider-Man yet, because it has the best Spider-Man in it. So if I was going to rate it as a technique-wise film, because in my opinion, the Spider-Man scenes in this just raise it to a whole nother level for me, but technique-wise, it's one of those 2.5-star flicks. So, you know, but Spidey was done so well, and is the Spider-Man that I've been waiting to see for so long, that I'm willing to let some of that stuff slide. And that's a big, that's huge coming from me. I usually don't let anything slide. So anyway, thanks for watching my hour-long review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I probably might have forgotten some things here and there, but I'm not going to go 2 hours. So it's long enough already, and but I hope it wasn't too long in the tooth or boring for you guys. And stay tuned for Spider-Man 3. Because I haven't seen that movie since I watched it on DVD after I saw it in the theater and liked it. And then I remember being so crushed and disappointed and angry after I watched it again and at home, and go through all those emotions again. Yay. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I'll see you guys later. See ya.